Well, what inspired me to give my talk, it actually came out of frustration. I was invited to keynote for a conference, and I realized that a lot of colleagues were struggling, and some people were struggling because they thought, well, this is what are we paid for, and some other people were just finding different solutions to similar problems, and actually enjoying their life, and so it was a lot about this pain is not really necessary. It's about taking a way out. And in the talk, I will talk about something like how can I quickly identify projects which are doomed to fail or which are going to be a horrible working experience, and which things we can try to change to make them better. And, so it's a lot more on the human side, I would say, this time. I would say one thing is you are in control. There are some decisions that we can do as software people which will be affecting our life in the workplace. And because I see really bad things happening by decision taken by good people in good faith that turn out to be actually horrible. And the other thing, that the reason for the title, the Gordian Knot, is just like something like what I want to say is everything is connected. So I'm trying to draw a line between software architecture and some practices of good software design and behavioral patterns in the workplace, like systems with a lot of shared components will turn out like to be basically set up the schedule with a lot of mandatory meetings for coordination, and too many meetings will increase the level of frustration in the team, because we are not coding. We are just having a lot of meetings, negotiating with the other team about how to name those APIs. That's boring. We want to deliver value, and this was part of the decision choice we made like 6 months ago, and the result is just a workplace where everybody hates each other. So there are connections. The people are saying like, well, that's not my job. No, it's your job. It's your job to a given extent. And no clean separation, no orthogonality between software architecture, culture, and organization in the company. Well, did software craftsmen achieve what they aimed? Well, I would say not yet. Like it's a movement. It's not like you're not gonna stop. Okay, done. Now the software is correctly written, and we can just all take a holiday. No, it's not gonna work like that. Just so, I would say the method was starting the conversation, show that quality and practices mattered, and start a more interesting conversation about what's a purpose of the software, what's the purpose of the quality, what is the importance of the practices and how they impact the world outside it. I think the idea of starting the conversation, yes, that's a success. Is the job done? Well, no, and it probably would never be. And let's keep going. Biggest challenges for software today, well, there's so many. It really depends a lot on the context. But I could really connect to what Sandro Mancuso was talking in his first talk about developers being somewhere at the end of the pipeline for product development and getting something that starts to look like a waterfall again. But at the same time, we try to engage in some of the discussion upfront in terms of design, architecture, and goals, and strategy for the whole organization. And it's not that easy anyway. So the conversation might be open, but there is still some frictions and reluctances to actually take part of this conversation. I would say that's a fantastic problem space. Like we are trying to collaborate with a user experience service design company. There's a lot of ideal cultural alignment between those two fields, but at the same time, a lot of little frictions related to maybe trivial thing like how much detail do I need to put in my artifact? Which are the deliverables? Some deliverables are part of the culture, and also how do different teams cope with uncertainty? So everybody wants everything else to be finished before they start, and I'm totally okay in working with something which is roughly done, 80% done. I'm a lot more into wiki culture in some places, but I see people around me really struggling with the idea. Like, no, I need this to be settled before I start. And finding the perfect balance between good, perfect, and good enough for starting, it's really, yeah, actually the challenge that I would like to maybe not solve, but at least improve. What advice to my younger self? I think it might all boil down to don't trust anyone. I mean, a lot of people really look like gurus. They say really good stuff, but ultimately you gotta try it. So don't trust is not like, well, people are bad around you. No, it's not like that. Close yourself into the house no, it's you have to practice everything. If there is one thing that I've learned, it's just like the unspoken part is the context, and you get some advice that look like a generally valid advice. You got to try it and see what is missing. You're gonna try something different, and sometimes you got to do something which is actually breaking the advice. If there is one thing which is working in what I do, is most of the time has been what I was doing when nobody else was looking at me, because the advices from the most experienced people around me turn out to be crap, and okay, I did something different instead. So yeah, don't be afraid for doing this, and advices are coming from good people with good intention, but there's also a lot of inertia, and people don't really recognize problems if everybody's having the same problem. Then it looks like tradition, and but you can improve on that. So a little bit about event storming. Event storming actually started from exactly that same break the rule pattern applied to everything. Like one of the things that I was doing at that time was I was basically carrying an IKEA paper roll in my backpack because I hated the traditional meeting room, and I needed to visualize what I was doing, and what I was doing was bigger than the traditional whiteboard. So yeah, I mean, I really felt like a stupid, weird person by just like, oh yes, here's my paper roll. What the hell am I doing? But if you're not afraid of breaking convention, well, then quite a few things can happen. And it turned out that by simply trying to visualize the whole, oh, we don't have enough space for that. Yeah, nobody has. So that's a really good reason for trying to do something different. When you visualize the whole, you discover so many interesting things, like the business doesn't really have a clear understanding of the business. They will never admit that, but they can only discover this if you actually try to visualize end to end. And then you discover that the business is fighting. They have little wars between departments and frictions and conflicts. And as a software person, you would like peace to be established before starting to write software. At the same time, one of the interesting bits that we end up discovering is there is so much value in visualizing the misunderstanding. Simon's talk was a lot about diagrams and visualizing the architecture, and I love the part about visualization. What I really like about event storming, which is kind of complementary in some fields, is how interesting it is to visualize something which is wrong. Because the moment people see what is the wrong part coming from learners, that you cannot learn everything right from the very beginning, you're basically exposing the whole team to correction, and these corrections are valuable to create value. Or also to discover that, wow, this is what we learned talking from this person, this is what we learned talking from this person, and the two things don't match. So the inconsistency is in the business side. All this part of the conversation is really powerful because it reduces uncertainty in the early stages of the project, and probably it reduces a lot of stupid decisions that we might have taken later. And I really like it. And it's fun. It just simplifies the development later on, and not really removes the fun of it. But yeah, cool stuff. Well, reason to attend. One thing, I met a friend of mine, charisma developer, really curious eyes, and said like, I'm following it every year. And that face was already the explanation, the eyes of a curious person getting information from this. I looked at the lineup this year, and it was awesome. And I already had good insight, good conversation, and it's just like not even 25% of the whole conference. So No, that's looks like there's a theme, there's a connection between the speakers, and a lot of interesting stuff coming from exactly the frontier, the bleeding edge of doing good stuff in the right way. So yes.